everyone from Chelsea Fan TV. 4-0 against Preston North End. Lewis, mate, I was sitting in the East Stand and it was painful in the first half, I'll be honest with you. But, you know, we talk about in-game management a lot, and Pochettino made changes and we ended up scoring 4 in the second half.
We always get one decent half. I guess this time it was the second half. Usually it's the first half. That's why when we went into half-time at 0-0, I was like, oh boy, we're going to be in for a treat second half. But we were. And actually a good treat. Like, we upped the intensity a little bit. Preston just couldn't really hang with us for the full 90. I think individual quality showed at the end of it, but still, people are going to call me negative. That was a game of two halves. Like, that first 45, and to be honest, you could argue 60 until we scored, wasn't pretty at all. We yet again didn't look good structurally. Going forwards, we looked very individualistic. Didn't really seem to combine well together. It feels like a similar tale that we've had many times this season. But again, we have a good run of games coming up. We've said that for so long, and because of the opposition that we're playing, they're not really going to make us pay for it. I think they had like one clear-cut chance in the first half, and that was about it. So we were riding our luck, but again, it's the FA Cup. Like, we're playing a championship team. It is what it is. We set up a little bit better in the second half. We apply a little bit more intensity. We get the first goal, which, to be honest, that was the crucial part. Just break the deadlock, and everything would open up from there. And it did. It did. Big up to Cole Palmer, because we actually got a goal from a corner again. Thiago Silva again from a corner too. Sterling showing that he can be a consistent free kick taker. Broja is showing that he's good in terms of headers. Like, that looked a little bit more optimistic, because he nearly scored from another header after that point. Enzo, it's just good to see him get GNA, because it just silences all the GNA merchants saying, oh, he don't do his job, or he's not having a good season because he don't have GNA. Facts, you don't watch Chelsea. It is what it is. But I guess from a results perspective, it's optimistic.
Yeah.
We've still got a good run of games coming up. I think this is 3 wins on the bounce. The way we're playing isn't really great. It doesn't really feel sustainable, but the teams that we're playing, I don't really think it's going to count for anything until we face maybe Liverpool on deadline day.
100%. I mean, it's interesting you talk about Enzo. So we talk about GNA, but if people say he's not been playing well because of that, they don't know anything about football. So do you think he's had a good season, and do you think his performance today was good?
I think the entire midfield has been underwhelming for the most part, but I also think it's been the least of our problems. When it comes to individuals, the biggest problem is that we've kind of been putting Enzo and Caicedo away from each other. I've spoken so many times this season about putting Gallagher in the pivot and putting Enzo in the 10, and how it doesn't take the best qualities from both of them. Gallagher's better higher up the pitch, Enzo's better deeper up the pitch in a double pivot, but we don't do that. And that's why both of them seem to suffer as a result of it. So, like, in terms of Enzo's season, like, there was times like around November where we were saying Enzo's been a little bit underwhelming. But people have used that, and especially rival fans have used that as a way to say Enzo's been holding your team back, he's not been stepping up, and that's not been the case. Most of the games where I've seen us drop points in, other than, I could say maybe Manchester United off the top of my head, I outright say the midfield was the main issue. And then when it even comes to midfield, I talk about the way that we set up the midfield. Even in games today, the gap between the midfield and the defence was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous at times. So, like, those are the overarching problems over the individuals. That's why I'm saying people saying going at Enzo for lack of GNA, it's silly. This guy's meant to control games. He's meant to release the ball towards the attackers. If the attackers aren't looking cohesive in the final third, or they're wasting their chances, that's not his fault. That's why I don't really get people saying Enzo's had a bad season. It goes same thing for the whole midfield. Whole midfield's been underwhelming, turned up in certain games, especially against the bigger teams too, but as an overall, they've all been underwhelming.
Fair enough. I mean, Alki Gilchrist, he made his Chelsea debut starting at Stamford Bridge. Lovely to see him, to be honest with you, mate, and he got a lot of love from the fans. What did you make of his performance?
I think they tried to target him in the first half, but it didn't work. He did well. He handled the pressure well. There was some good individual moments from him. I didn't want to jump on this whole Alfie Gilchrist bandwagon immediately, because he's had like 5 minutes going into this game. A couple nice tackles and passion moments, but I wanted to see how he actually looked in a full game. He looked decent. He looked decent. Handles the pressure well. He's composed. That's the #1 thing you can ask of youth players when you're immediately putting them into the first team. Is composure. He's got that in spades. Handled the pressure well. Couple good tackles. Couple good progressive plays. Couldn't ask more for him. Couldn't ask more for him. That's a real performance to be hyped up about. Everything else is more individual moments, but he actually had an overall performance today. So I see it. I see the belief in him. He did well today.
Yeah, he is a right back. Is that his normal position, or does he normally play as a centre back?
I think he's a centre back, but they'll correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section. But from what I remember, he's a centre back.
Yeah, I'm struggling to see how he's going to get into the squad as a centre back because we've got so much height in there. But when you talk about composure, I think that is still something we're lacking in those positions. For me, again, I'm looking at Disasi. I don't think he's been great over the past 2 games. I thought he was shaky against Luton, and I think he had moments today where I was honestly quite disappointed, to be honest with you. And I think
Palace as well, to be fair.
Yeah, and Crystal Palace. I'm not saying he's had a bad season. I agree with you. I think Disasi's been okay, but I do think that he's a player who's not as young as the others and should be settling in quicker and stamping his authority as a starting player. I mean, how much time do you give these guys? Because somebody's got to step up. Silva can't be there forever. Obviously, he scored the goal, but who's going to fill those shoes? Because you've got Colwell at left back, you've got Disasi at right back, Gilchrist is coming in. So many options, but nobody's really settled. Fofana, you say?
Yeah, Fofana potentially as well. Like, Fofana was excellent last season. People forget that very easily with all the injuries. We're also looking for another right centre-back too. So there are going to be options. Like, if we're talking about Gilchrist, respectfully, he's going on loan sooner or later. It is what it is. He's not developed nearly enough to the level where we can talk about him being a regular feature in this squad, and that's fine. That's fine. Like, the fact he's even doing well in games like this is already a positive. But he's going straight out on loan, and that's okay. We have options already. We have plenty of options. We're already looking for options with the potential of Thiago Silva and Chalobah leaving in the next 6 months. In terms of the likes of Disasi, like, I always like to give new signings a season, because I always think they need to bed into the new team and the new manager's style of play. I've spoken enough times this season about how I don't rate this manager in general. So now he needs more time to bed in because the philosophy's not making sense and the game management isn't making sense. But I do agree, he does look a bit too shaky on the ball sometimes. And like, that's an area that he does need to work on. But that's just something that he needs to improve on, and we need to see how that works out in the next few games. I understand the frustrations for now, but there's not really much we can do about it, especially when they're new signings. You just have to let them bed in a little bit more.
Yeah, and what do you think about Petrovic and Sanchez? There's an argument for both of them. Who, in your mind, you've had enough time to see both of them, who would you start?
Right now it's just Petrovic on form. Because for me, like, Sanchez, he's not been terrible. Really and truly, it's the Arsenal mistake that's on everybody's head. But he's also not been world class. And the distribution's not been excellent for a lot of this season. Shot stopping's been calm and everything like that. He's been decent, but he's not been world class. As of right now, Petrovic's come in. He's not put a foot wrong. So with that in mind, you cannot bench him off that form, because it's not like a Cech and Ross Turnbull situation where, let's say, Cech's injured for a month, Ross Turnbull banks a good couple games. I don't care. Cech's going back into that 11. This is Robert Sanchez. He hasn't had that impression at Chelsea yet, so you gotta earn your spot back into the team personally. Like, it's what it is. Petrovic has been good enough. He deserves his opportunity. Keep playing until he has a string of mistakes. Not even one mistake. It'll have to be a string of mistakes. But for now, Petrovic is our #1. The test was Luton. He passed that test. We move.
Fair enough. And just with Broha as well, balls into the box, crosses, obviously his heading ability, it's got to be the strength and the way that we can feed him, because on the ball he's been very, very average. Is that the way we get goals out of Broha? Because otherwise, I think we're really going to struggle.
It's either that or it's nothing. Like, let's call it what it is. Even before the goal, he wasn't great. So I'm just glad that he scored. Hopefully it gives him something to be a bit more confident about, and hopefully he shows us a bit more against Middlesbrough. But he weren't great again today. Just glad that he scored. That's like one positive we can take coming out of the game. But keep trying the crossing into him and see how that works. Balls to the feet haven't worked. Him dropping deep hasn't worked. Yeah. Playing low crosses into him hasn't worked. Let's try headers. See if that works. He can do the Alvaro Morata 17-18 thing again. That's fine.
Timo Werner, here we go. Tottenham Hotspur. Very disappointing, mate. Very disappointing.
Why are you disappointed?
Why would I be happy about him going to Tottenham?
Because he's a bum. He's been a bum. I'm just glad I don't have to hear that shit Werner chant at the bridge anymore. And all that bollocks, bruv. He was crap for us for 2 years, but everyone wants to run this Timo Werner revisionism because, oh, he made a little decoy run and he worked hard. Fuck him. He was just as shit as Havertz was, just as shit as Mount was towards the end of his time at Chelsea. Who gives a shit? If you're crying about Werner, I don't even know why you had that sort of sympathy and that affection towards the guy who was here for 2 years and all he did was fight a losing battle with the offside flag. Who cares? The fact he's gone to Tottenham, you've got him and Richarlison in the same 11, great. I look forward to seeing it. But fuck Werner. I didn't like him anyway. I always thought he was shit. Now he's at a shit club. Great, I ain't gonna cry about it. Great.